and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we are going to be starting with Josephina. Now, I have actually recorded pretty much everything except for her cookbook as of right now. It is the 19th of February. But this is the first video you guys are going to see. So, actually, one of the last books I read. So this is a very big book. This is new, and I'm going to mispronounce this terminology. New Mexico Colcha Club. So this is about a very specific type of embroidery that they did in New Mexico and that developed in this area. And it is mentioned in Josephina's book several times. So this book, the subtitle is Spanish Colonial Embroidery and the Women Who Saved It. So this story, and it is by Nancy C. Benson, tells at least part of it. It talks about the history of this type of embroidery and kind of the history of New Mexico, how the Spanish came up and they brought certain things. I think I should be able to read the chapter. So the first part of it is the roots of the Colcha embroidery in the Spanish province of New Mexico. The second part is the revival of the Colcha embroidery, which is it's talking about a person's name who's Tofila, the archivist. So this is a woman who brought it back because it was being lost. Part 3 is the Renaissance of Colcha embroidery, Esther the artist. So Esther is her Tofila's daughter. So the first part of the book, after the introduction and the prefix, talks about, first it starts with the 1600s, so the difficult birth of the colony. So New Mexico was the furthest north, and that includes it was on the edge of the what we consider the Spanish Empire in the Americas. So, and it's very much the middle of nowhere. I mean, I'm in Phoenix right now. At the time, this was in the middle of nowhere too. I'm not sure it existed. So it talks about them coming up, the conquistadors coming up through the area and the Spanish missions and all sorts of things and the sheep that they created. Then it talks about the 1700s, which is when they first started with this type of embroidery, and it does show you some of the pictures. So it's showing this specific type of embroidery that they use using this specific type of sheep's wool. So, and what the word actually means. Now, it is Spanish, and it's Spanish for bedspread. So that's what the terminology means in Spain. But it came to mean, because these women were embroidering their bedspreads to make them, to add color and make them, for the best of, I'm going to say prettier, but that doesn't seem, make them look nicer and again, give more interest to the plain bedspreads. And it came to mean this specific type of embroidery in New Mexico. So that's what it came to mean. So again, and there's quite a few pictures. You can see the embroidery here. And let's see, this is still talking part 1. It's talking about the spinning and the cloth from the I missed the 18th century. Must have moved into the roads. Let me see if I missed chapters here. Well, no. And then let's see. It talks about, it shows a picture of the stitch here. This is a really interesting and great book when you're talking about the history. And this is, when it comes to Josephina's books, they talk about this a decent amount. So in chapter 3 talks about the 1800s, which is the heyday of the needle art. So it talks about, it shows, here's some of the vests here. So it was, and the different yarns and things, and how they also incorporated some of the Native American art motifs of the time as well. So, and then it talks about the early 1900s, a thread on the verge of breaking. Now, as we're aware what happens, and this would have happened in Josefina's lifetime, Mexico broke from Spain. They opened up trading through the Santa Fe Trail to the United States, and the United States decided to take over. so in doing that, this type of embroidery kind of slowly fell out of fashion because they were able to buy stuff, because specifically once the trains started coming. So it's slowly falls out of use. And then chapter 5, the daughter of the colonists, where it's talking about some of the people in the 1800s, and the woman and her, this is the woman and her husband the woman who revived it, her wedding photos. So she started, this is part 2. And then she started the Arte Antigo, where she and several of her other women were reviving this. They started a club where they were doing this embroidery again. And then it moves on. It shows some of the bedspreads and things. They're trying to recreate it so it's not lost. I do believe this is go. And then chapter 7 is strengthening the thread, which I believe is part of her daughter, Esther. So it's still talking about Tofita. So Tofila. I am very, very sorry. I do not speak Spanish. And how she started dealing with these things. And then it goes to part 3. And it talks about chapter 8 is a child in the world, in a world unchanged by time. So this is Esther, which is her daughter, which is Tofita's 4th daughter, or 4th child. She was born in 1933. So, and she kind of takes over and talks about protecting this. So that's what this book is about. It talks about the history of this very unique embroidery that, again, as I said, is brought up several times in Josefina's books, and is very integral, would have been very integral to as a part of her life when she was young. Though, again, when she got much older, it's possible, obviously she knows how to do it, but it began to fall out of favor because they were able to get things through basically the Santa Fe Railroad and getting things from Europe. So, but then it talks about how it was brought back. So in my eyes, this is almost a connection to Josefina's past, to what maybe her ancestors would have done and hopefully brought back in a way, and been connected to this because this was a very integral part of their life. So this is a very, very long book. For homeschoolers, parents, this would be a good book to create lessons out of. This is a good resource. For the older high school kids, obviously this would be definitely, again, would be something to look at when you're learning it. But this is definitely a resource book for homeschoolers or for anyone wanting to learn about this. I enjoyed this book. I bought it off Amazon. I really want to, one of these days I'll find the time to be able to do embroidery. And there are some of it in Josefina's craft book. This would be the type of embroidery that she would be doing. And it might be shown in the craft book. I do not have it with me, but I have reviewed it already. But that's the type, this is the type of embroidery that she would be doing. So this would be an extension of that. So that is it for this review. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe, and look forward to Josefina's series, because you guys will be, this is the very start, even though this is the second to last video I am making for this. I am waiting on getting Josefina's cookbook, which I did finally find. You will find, I will mention throughout these other videos that I was looking for it for a decent price. I was able to resource it and find it, so I will be able to shoot with the actual book, though I will probably link the archive copy, just because, again, it's really, really hard to find. I got lucky. I posted something on a Facebook. American Girl girls site, and somebody else mentioned somebody's got it here. I think I got it from Thrift Books. So that will be my last actual video, but you guys will seeing that in a couple of weeks. But again, look forward to Josephina and New Mexico in the 1820s. And then we'll be moving on to Marie Grace and Cecile, which will be in New Orleans in the early 1850s. Then we'll move north to Kirsten, who overlaps, is in Minnesota in the early 1850s. And then we'll jump to the 1860s with Addie, and we'll explore the American Civil War and slavery and stuff like that. Though we will be touching a bit on slavery with Cecile and Marie Grace, just because obviously it was going on. They were not slaves, but we will be talking a little bit about that next month as well. But then we move into Kirsten, and then we move into Addie, where we'll go more into the Civil War stuff, and then we will jump all the way into the early 1900s with Samantha. So, and then we'll move on through history. So, if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. Look forward to this year's look into American history through American Girl. And check out the rest of the channel because I have a good catalog. Thank you.